This podcast was recorded on Gubby Gubby land and pays respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Welcoming Jaeda to the potty. How are you, Queen?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're finally here. We kind of organized this about 6 months ago, and then life just got in the way. And then you just jump back in my DMs and you're like, babe, I'm still here. Are you still here?
No, literally, it was so synchronistic. Like I was just about to go to sleep and I'm like, I don't know what happened. I can't even explain it. I just ended up in my DMs, in your DMs specifically, no one else's. And I saw that we were like, trying to do this in the past. And I'm like, holy shit, yes. And the
Mm.
time was just so perfect. You like reached out right away and we're like, let's do it.
Yeah, and like I said to you, it was so bizarre because you like just popped into my mind like the day before. And I'm like, why does this stuff always happen to me? Like it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's the
It's so
synchronicity.
crazy. I feel like it just wasn't meant to be at the time. And now we're just so ready to connect and to deliver like a bomb ass episode. So let's fucking go. I'm excited.
Yeah, I totally agree. Divine timing is such a thing. And like it's always like so funny to look back and go, like, at the end of this episode, we'll probably be like, that is fucking why this is like being moved to this date. Like it just is like it makes so much sense. Um,
I agree.
But yeah, so do you want to introduce yourself? Like, who are you? Who is she? Let everyone
Yeah,
know.
so my name is Jaeda Chantelle. I am a mentor and a podcast host. So I specialize in supporting women with falling in love with their lives and their businesses. And we do it through the lens of spirituality and manifestation.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And I was just saying to you before we started like recording, I'm like, babe, we have to talk money because the way you talk to like money manifestation, I just love it so much. And I feel like it's just so embodied, like the whole manifestation side of it. And I actually don't think I've had anyone on, which is so funny because like I feel like I'm such a spiritual woo-woo person, but I don't think I've even had anyone on that's like spoken about manifestation. So welcome.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God, your audience is going to be so happy to have this because I remember when I first heard about this stuff, I was well into business, but I had never even thought about money mindset, money manifestation, money energetics. Like I just had no idea that that realm was even a thing. And
Mm.
I heard someone speaking about it and I was like, holy shit. Like this just changed everything for me. And even though I like didn't really know much about it because she wasn't really going into it, she kind of just made me aware
Yeah.
of the fact that it exists. I was like, okay, this is where I'm going next. This is where I'm gonna pour my energy into. And I ended up doing that. And it just changed so much for me in my life. So I'm really happy that I'm here speaking about it.
Yeah, so good. And I think like when it comes to like manifestation, sometimes people can be like, oh, that's not a thing or whatever. But like the way I always see it, because I used to, before I kind of knew fully about it, I was like, well, there's people that are making millions of dollars, like a revenue a month. Like they're not manifesting, like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you bother? Then when I began to like understand, I'm like, but those people aren't actually fulfilled in how they're making money. Like those people aren't actually fulfilled in how they're spending money. It's more of like sand in their hands rather than working on their mindset to hold the amounts that they want to hold.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, and that's where I was at before I discovered this work. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I was I went into business as like a super baby when it comes to like mindset, personal development, and just self-awareness
Yeah.
in general. Like I wasn't conscious at all, but I was heavily into fit. I still am into fitness. It's like my thing. So I was like, okay, I want to make this into a business. So mind you, I've never done any personal development work. So I'm like, yeah, let's make this into a business. And the right tools came to me at the time, the right coach came to me, and he helped me start the business.
Mm.
And since I had been working on a personal brand for so long on social media, the business kind of just like took off. And it was like so shocking to my nervous system. And I just had no tools to be able to handle that sort of money. Like I mean, I've never had that much money. I wasn't freaking rich, but it was more money than I had ever seen in my
Yeah.
life. And I can tell you right now that I wasn't excited about it. It was so weird. It was like I still felt so broke. Like I still
Yeah.
felt so unfulfilled. And I remember like one time, it was like a few months in, I ended up making like 3,000 in a month. And I was like, oh my God, at first. But then right away, I'm like, okay, but it's not 5,000. It's not
Yeah.
6,000. And as the numbers kept going up, I just felt so unfulfilled. And I remember my now husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, he was able to see what was happening, but I wasn't. And he was just like,
Yes.
you gotta, like, come on. And I just like wouldn't listen. And I was in this container that was like, I want to say kind of like really masculine and like all about the money. Like, you get the money, you get the leads, and that's all we're after. And it kind of like brainwashed me in a way where it's like they didn't teach us the energetics behind it or the mindset behind it. And they didn't really teach us the fact that we're not going to find happiness, self-worth outside of ourselves. And
Yeah.
I was searching for my self-worth in the money.
Yeah,
So
that is a huge, let's take the conversation there because that is fucking huge. And I think a lot of people, that's what it's like normalized. It's like if you don't have money, you're unworthy.
just like talk about blind spot. I had no idea that I was even doing that. I
Yeah.
knew it in a way, but not in the way I know it now. So like for instance, I found this little notebook that I had in 2020, I believe. And I wrote in it back then and I said, I'm so thankful that I created this business. I finally feel a sense of worth in myself, something along those lines. And that was so normal to me. That was like, duh, obviously, yeah, I have a business now. I'm making money. I finally took action on my dreams. Of course, I'm worthy now. It's just so duh. It's duh.
Mm,
It's like, duh, you find worthiness when you have money. And
yeah.
now I'm like, I read that and I'm like, it just, my heart kind of broke a little bit because, you know, I I just can't, it's just the amount of people who feel that way and the amount of pain that I had to go through when it
Yeah.
comes to realizing that my worth was not tied to that at all. And, when I decided to shift my business and go from fitness to what I'm doing now, I had to let go of something that was working really well. And I
Yeah.
had to see a dip in income. And with my income went my worth. And it
Yeah.
was a big realization. I was like, whoa, whoa. I had no idea that it was so tied to that. Like I just felt worthy in the moment because I felt successful.
Yeah.
But when that success was taken away, and it wasn't taken away, I chose that route. But when I didn't have, the external validation that I was used to having, all of a sudden and when I say I felt worthless, like I felt worthless, like
Yeah.
the lowest of the low. And I had to build myself back up. And
Mm,
that journey was so hard, but it was so worth it. So I feel like it's just so important to talk about this right now because there are so many people who are listening to this who probably feel like their worth is tied to their job, to their business, to, I don't know, name the thing, because we all tie our worth to something until we're conscious of it.
yeah, I totally agree. Like that's why I feel like a lot of people get caught in like the 9 to 5 even because there's the uncertainty when you step out into if you and like a lot of people's dreams isn't the entrepreneur side of it, but at the
Yeah.
same time, a lot of people stay stuck in that because it's so much easier to know that you're on like 90K a year, working a 9 to 5 that you're unfulfilled in, than maybe taking the leap and losing, like going through that dip and then like going through those feelings of like, who the fuck am I? I don't even know who I am, like any of that. And like I've had that as well in the past. Like when I worked in like a full-time job and then I went full-time into my business and it was all well and good. And then I also pivoted my business from doing like I was just doing sort of in-person stuff and I pivoted it to the menstrual cycle work and energetics with the menstrual cycle. And it was like so much easier for me to be like, oh, this isn't working out. Like, this isn't supposed to be my path. But it's actually because I was tying so much of like, people only love me and accept me, and I only belong if I'm making this much money and I'm doing this more accepted thing. So it's like stepping into the unknown is like such a huge fear that people allow to hold them back because when you don't know what's there for you, you don't know who you're going to be in that.
You don't know what's going to come out. You don't know which sides of you are going to reveal themselves, the insecurities, the shadows. Like you just don't know. But those things are held within you, regardless of whether or not they are in the light. You get what I'm saying? So, like, if we're not feeling worthy just as is, like inherently worthy, just without all the titles, without all the validation, well, that's in our body. Like that's we're holding on to that, and that's the lens that we're living our life through, we're making our decisions through. It's just not necessarily something that we can flat out say, like, hey, like I'm not feeling this way, or this is tied to that. So my point is like we have to take the leap in order to be able to see and face those parts of ourselves so we can heal them.
Yeah.
Because I know, okay, like I'm sure you feel on top of the world now that you've been through that and you've gotten to the other side. Because I mean, in my experience, that was probably one of the hardest things that I had, that I was initiated with, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like for me, I've always been, and like it's something I do in my business and support women with, but like the whole general generational healing side of it as well, of like, we literally take on things like belief systems, everything in our DNA from the women who came before us. And through that, I like was actually looking back through my journal like yesterday, I think, because I've just finished it, but I started it in like June or July last year. And what in June or July last year was when it was kind of like this new journal was like the new start of like, no, like, okay, I'm really seeing now, like I'm worthy, like, and not from like the space of like, I'm worthy, I'm like fucking powerful, like actually like starting to feel like, actually, I feel like I'm who I am. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Stepping to myself.
exist. Yeah, 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 yeah. And that is the best feeling ever. Because I think for so long, like in the beginning, when you're starting this work, it is, I'm worthy, I am powerful, I am amazing. And you
Yeah.
don't fucking believe it. And then you start to think, like, is this a waste of time? Am I like doing some like airy fairy bullshit? But then you
Mm,
just keep moving, you get through the other side of like the initiations that you're faced with, for example, like leaving a 9 to 5 and starting your own thing, or tearing down a business that wasn't aligned anymore. You get to the
mm,
other side of that, you see how fucking powerful you are because you held yourself through that. Even through
yeah.
the hardest of the hardest moments, you still made it out alive. And then you're just so fucking wise on the other side, and you
Yeah.
realize how powerful you really are. Like I mentioned before, it's just like it's like an awakening. And if you're listening to this and you feel like you don't feel that yet, trust me when I say you're going to awaken to it, as long
Mm,
as you are taking those risks, as long as you're really just doing the scary, uncomfortable stuff, because there's so much growth on the other side, and you meet those
yeah.
parts of you that are dying to be seen, heard, and healed.
Yeah, and I think where a lot of people go wrong is like they stay stuck in the affirmations of I'm worthy, I'm so strong, I've been through this, but it's from not an embodied space. So they're not actually embodied that they're worthy, like you said. They're not actually embodied that they're strong. They're just telling themselves that. So it's almost like they're lying to themselves and they're trying to reprogram their subconscious from a space where they actually know they're lying. So then they're not going to ever trust themselves because your subconscious mind knows you're fucking lying. And I think, yes, like I have affirmations all around my house. I am here for it. But I think like for me anyway, and like this is my own belief, like everyone's different. But for me, I actually sat down and was like, what like do I want to believe? And I wrote out like custom
Yeah.
affirmations because when you just do and like I started in the start too, like it's like you have to start there, but then you get to
Yeah.
a space and it's either like you stay there in the like generic affirmations. And that's where people then, yeah, turn their back to spirituality because they think that, oh, this is all it fucking is. Like, it's not taking me anywhere. Then they're like, it's a bunch of bullshit. But it's like when you get to that, like, intersection almost, and it's like you can go this way and continue, or you can go this way and actually evolve your, like, the way you're, calling in your higher self, the way that you're evolving as a person.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to shift. And you come to that intersection over and over and over. But it's just that first one, I think a lot of people fuck up.
Yeah, I almost fucked up. Like, well, I did fuck up a few times. I was just like, I started to lose faith. I thought it was like super corny after a while. I'm like, what am I fucking doing? This is so annoying. Even the people that I was learning from, I no longer resonated with them anymore, but they were all that I knew. So I like kind of kept forcing myself to learn from them. And I'm just like, this is all annoying. This
Yeah.
is so fucking annoying. And I think that maybe those accounts and those like businesses and their personal brands are so big that they just like pump content out, like very generic, like here's some affirmations for you to
Yeah.
follow. And it just feels fake. It doesn't feel real. But then
Yeah.
when you actually start, like you said, creating your own customized affirmations and mantras and just like ways to view the world, you just feel so much more connected with it, and it's like exciting and it's no longer corny, and you can kind of like ditch whatever wasn't working for you before.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've also had like iterations of, oh, this actually can't be fucking real if I'm getting faced with this, problem right now, like as if my angels are real, like it's a bunch of bullshit. And then it's like, as soon as I've like caught myself in that, it's like, oh, you've lost faith. Okay, let's wind it back in and like, what's the opportunity from this? And like, it always changes everything. And I actually had a girl on the podcast yesterday, and we were like, she was like explaining her story, and I was like, such an opportunist. Like, she was always seeing opportunity rather than like letting it hold her back. And I think that as well is such an important thing of like, when things are constantly going wrong, and like you might not agree with this, but like I just believe like whatever is going, like whatever problem you have is actually like it's on you. Like you need to take responsibility for that. So
Okay.
like if it's like that you have a shit like money, like money problems, a shit relationship, you're insecure. For me, what I say a lot to like clients is like if your period's painful, like it's actually on you. Like you need to take some responsibility for that, because it's like when everything's from this more like energetic lens, and like yes, there's like the tangibles, yes, I'm all here for it all, but it's like it's actually on you, and like you can change these things. But it's firstly like actually shifting that perspective from like playing victim or being victim to something, to how can I grow from this, how can I have an opportunity from this. And I
Yeah.
actually
Mhm.
like, yeah, I just remember like even just over a year ago, and I was like in one of those spaces of just like, why am I fucking doing this? Like, fuck this. Like, this just fucking sucks. And then I was like, you haven't even like grabbed out your journal and actually like pulled out some oracle cards and connected with your angels in like months. And then you're sitting here crying to yourself because it's not working out. Like,
100%. And it's like we all know the thing that gets us plugged back into our connection with the universe. Or like, let's just say there was that one thing that initially connected us, or like that person that we know that puts us into the frequency. We just listen to their voice and we're like, oh yeah, this shit is real. I'm connected. Or just like calling on your higher self. Whatever you do, you know that option is there. And sometimes we like subconsciously just want to stay in the ick and stay in the drama, rather than just literally calling ourselves out, like, what the fuck do I need to do right now to get spiritually connected and to call my higher self forth, because I cannot afford to be in this low frequency for any longer, for much longer. Like, this is bullshit. Like, this is not serving me. And like, when I'm in this energy, I genuinely cannot hear the guidance from my higher self. Therefore, I'm not taking action, or I'm not like moving in the way that I could be moving, creating in the way that I could be creating, because I feel like there's like a block. There's the frequency is off. Like I no longer connect to that part of me who has all the answers, who knows the next step, who knows the path better than I can ever even imagine, right? So it's just like being honest with yourself, knowing. And if you don't like know, or if you're saying that you don't know what connects you to that, like get real with yourself, like figure it
mm,
out, like figure out what connects you to that energy, because that's where we want to be ultimately. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm really not saying like, oh, positive vibes only. Like trust me, like I went through that phase and it did nothing for me. Like like absolutely nothing. Like I think we all go through this where we just feel like we don't even want to look at the shit. Like we don't even want to look at aspects of ourselves that we need to change or anything like that because it's just so uncomfortable and we're thinking, okay, that's not positive, that's not high vibe. And then time goes on and all of a sudden we're in the same exact place because we didn't want to look at the aspects of ourselves that we needed to own up to in order to get to where we want to be. And I'm just so fucking over that shit. Like, I am so over that. And like, there's still aspects of in my life where I catch myself doing that. And I'm like, no, we're not doing this. Like, let's be real with ourselves. Like, stop being so afraid of calling yourself out. You know, like, yes, it can be uncomfortable to look at the areas where we need to improve in because why is it uncomfortable? Because we make it mean something about ourselves. And I think that's super, super important to just realize. It's like we can observe it and just not feel like we are the worst person in the world or not feel like we're unworthy or not feel like we're like this, not worthy of like creating what we want because we're feeling that way. We can just observe it and say, oh, okay, this is information and we can shift that. What am I going to do? Like, what is my next step? Like, we don't have to shame ourselves. And I
Yeah.
used to be really good at that. Like, just like, oh my God. Like, I remember there was this one point in my business where it was like the fitness business. And I just felt like I wasn't getting as many clients as I was used to. And it was my first moment of having to deal with like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And I just like couldn't have the conversation with myself. It was so difficult for me to like sit down and call myself out for areas where I can improve in because I was making it mean something about me. Oh, if I'm doing this wrong, then I must be like a really bad business owner. I just must suck at this, or just like facing that part of me that needed to improve. My ego just like couldn't handle it at all. And now I just feel like excited by those things. And it took me a while to get here, but bringing this to the podcast is so important because there are so many people who can't really face those aspects of themselves right now. So hearing us talking about it might just like light something up in them.
Yeah. And I like something that I say to my clients is like every single emotion, like it's actually the stories you have attached to it. So like anger, it's not actually bad, but in society, we've been told that it's bad. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have bottled up anger. They're holding on to, that emotion in their body and then it's causing them pain. It's holding them back. They're not fully expressing their like full fierce feminine in their business or wherever it might be, even in their relationship, because they think if they show any sign of anger, then they're like all the stories they have attached to it. And I think when you just said like it's more about exploring the emotions that are there and like the things that are there, that's a fucking huge thing for people to take away because it's an exploration. It's like I'm literally just right now, I'm just seeing like Dora, she's like on her little like thing. And it's like sometimes swiper comes out. That's those emotions. You just have to say, like, swiping or swiping, you're not fucking taking me out of this. I'm gonna face
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And then we're just
Like,
gonna
I'm
keep
gonna
going with our map.
feel you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna just sit there for a second and just like, what's this? Oh, is that anger? Oh, okay. Let's just like feel that out for a second. Like
Mm.
let's accept it. Let's not be on the wave of like, oh, I'm angry. I'm not gonna manifest the thing I want to manifest because this person says I need to be high vibe all the time. Like that shit like ruined my life. I'm just kidding. It didn't ruin my
Yeah.
life.
And I think
Like
like
slowed down.
it can be so confusing for people though, because it's like,
So
stay in the frequency that you want to be, that you want to attract, but then it's equally like let go of the things that you like aren't serving you that are low frequency. And I think a lot of people in that as well can be a bit like, what the fuck do I do?
yeah.
And like what we just said, I feel like it's exploring it, but it's also not swinging that pendulum and being a fucking psycho bitch and being like, well, I'm
Mhm.
manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, literally.
It's like you actually have to meet in the middle. It's like my higher self, like I know my higher self is like I'm going to use actually an example that I do just in my everyday life. And I feel like it's tangible and it will like maybe make sense for people. But like my higher self, I know I'm going to be driving around a Porsche when I have a kid. Like that's going to be my mum car. Right now, I just have like a Mazda and I'm just like, it's a great car.
Mhm.
People are like, I don't know why you would want a different one because I want fucking better for myself, to be honest. That's why.
Mhm.
But this car doesn't need to take premium fuel. A Porsche does. So when I fill up every single time, I'm putting premium fuel in my car because it's like I'm like, what's the word? I'm not shaming myself that I can't get a Porsche right now, but I'm becoming an energetic match for when I get that Porsche. I'm not going to go, oh, fuck, I need to put like the more expensive fuel in it. Like, I didn't not get
Uh-huh.
into my budget. Like, I'm already just doing that because it's like, why wouldn't you be doing that if that's what your higher self would be doing? Like, my higher self isn't going to the fucking fuel station and trying to find the cheapest one and like fill up with the shit in the car. You know what I mean? Like, I just think
Oh,
I've fully just taken the conversation in a different direction, but like what
no, I
actions
love it.
what actions are like people taking in their lives that are actually misaligned with where you know you want to be? Like if you know that you want that fucking Porsche, then why the fuck are you on Petrol Spy trying to find the cheapest fuel station in your area? Like next level, you wouldn't be doing that, babe.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that you brought that
Yeah.
up. And for some reason, this just like popped into my mind as well, where it's like a lot of people, they want like a certain lifestyle or like a certain car, like a certain way of being, but they find themselves kind of like in judgment of people who do have those things. And if you're, okay, if you were that version of yourself that had that car, would you be like looking around at other people, judging them for having the car that you have? No, absolutely not, right? There's just a part of you that's like uncomfortable with seeing other people have the thing that you know that you don't yet have, right? So you're trusting in the unknown, you're trusting in the unseen, and you're in full expectation that you're gonna have that fucking car,
Yeah.
right? And when you're in full expectation, you see other people who have the car and you see yourself in them, right? You're just like, oh yeah, that's me soon.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
having this conversation with my friend last night, and I was just asking her because I just never knew that this was something that people feel until a couple of months ago, and it came into my mind, and like someone told me about it, and I was like, people go through life like this. But basically, it was whenever I see someone, and I've of course had iterations of like the whole like seeing fucking a Mercedes driver and being like fucking Mercedes driver and like worked on that stuff. Like, of course, we all have
Yeah.
that. I'm not fucking putting myself on this pedestal because I came from like a family with absolutely no money. So, of course, I've had to like work on that sort of stuff. But something that I've never really had to work on is seeing people ahead of where I want to be
Mhm.
and getting like jealous of them or thinking like fuck them, they have everything. I've always seen people ahead of me and been so inspired by it. But I think
Mhm.
a lot of people do the thing because I didn't realize this was a thing, like I said, until a few months ago that I was talking to my friend about it last night and I was just exploring with her. I was like, for example, like if you did like XYZ, would you be jealous of like the person that's above you, like the mentor? Or would you be
Mhm.
like inspired that like they're like modeling to you what you can actually be? Like you only see, in like you only ever see what's in you. So it's kind of like, well, then that's fucking like available for you. And she
Yeah.
was like, I feel like maybe a little bit triggered, but definitely inspired. And I was like, interesting. Because it's
Yeah.
like, for as long as you, which is like totally cool, but it's like, as long as you are like threatened, that's the word, as long as you're threatened by anything that's like above you, of like a mentor, a car, a fucking house, like a fucking anything, like whatever it is that you're threatened by, you're actually telling your unconscious mind, like, I can't
Mhm.
fucking have that. No, 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 no.
A
Like,
100%.
it's like
Yeah.
congruency.
And also, like, if you're threatened by that person, or if you're like jealous or whatever, triggered, your unconscious mind is thinking, well, if I have that thing, then other people are going to feel that way about me, and I don't want other people to feel that way about me, so I'm going to stay small, you know?
Yeah.
And then one more thing that I wanted to say about that is like, I think a lot of the times people start to feel threatened or triggered because they aren't really taking the action that they know they can be taking. to
Yes.
get to that place, because I just thought of an example of when I was in college. I gained like a lot of weight because I was like literally drinking and partying 5, 6 days a week. I just had like an insane phase. And I just 30 pounds, 30, 40 pounds I gained, and I was just unrecognizable, to be honest. And I really just wanted different for myself. And I followed this account. I don't know if anyone like knows her, Katie Harn. She's like pretty well known in the fitness industry. I followed her and I saw like all her content and how fit she was. And I was like, oh my God, like I want to look like that. And I was inspired. But then time kept going by and I wasn't doing anything for myself. Like I wasn't like really stepping into like the fitness identity that I wanted to be, mostly because I was fucking terrified because I didn't know what I was doing, which is relatable to a lot of people. And anything that you want to do, it's like we don't take action because we're nervous or we're scared or we're fearful or we have whatever limitations. So I didn't do it. And then I started seeing her content over and over again, and it was just reminding me of what I wasn't doing, and I unfollowed
Yeah.
her. So I started getting triggered by her, and like looking back, it's because it was just a mirror of what I wasn't like working on in myself, you know?
Mm.
So I think that's a really good thing to mention, because it's like, ooh, like where are we triggered by other people's success and like why?
Yeah. And like it can be such a it can be actually such like a when it's playing out, sometimes you don't realize it's playing out kind of thing.
Oh God, for
Like
real.
it
I
can
have
be one of
no
those things.
idea. I was just like, I'm unfollow. Like I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't want to explore it. I was just like, on to the next. Where's the alcohol? Let's go party, because I can't fucking face this shit right
Yeah.
now.
I'm actually going to contradict myself right now, but someone I that happened to me with was, but I wouldn't say it was threatened. I definitely wasn't threatened, but it was trigger. I feel like I was definitely triggered was like Felicity Morgan. She's just like one of the coaches in the coaching industry. And I remember like probably actually it was actually this time I'm referring to like just over a year ago when I wasn't calling them my fucking angels that time. And I had to unfollow her because I was like, you can't be making like $1 million a month, like $1 million a
Yeah.
month. Like, who the fuck? That's not real. Like fraud. And then I'm like,
Fraud, fake bitch.
and then I swear, like, obviously came back into like my truth and was like, why did I lose that part of me that was actually inspired by that? And like, I haven't unfollowed her since. And I actually just fucking love seeing her stuff. I'm like, it's so inspiring that you're like a mum of two, you have a beautiful partner, you have a beautiful house, and you're making fucking bank. Like, actually, slay.
I gotta say, like, same. Like, I feel the same way about her, and I've been triggered by her in the past, and I've unfollowed her in the past. So, like, I love that you mentioned that, because I think it was just like it was like the personal power aspect of it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is real. Like, she's way too confident. She's way too like, you know what I mean? And then now I'm just like you said, like fucking slay. Like you just like you're like addicted to the content. You're addicted to her energy, because we now see like, hey, that shit is real. Like that is
Yeah.
real stuff. Like we're no longer questioning it, you know?
Yeah. And I think when you get to that space of like fully like no, like this person is like fully an inspiration because like I said, I feel like I've never been someone who's dealt with like the whole threatened by someone thing, but of course I've had run-ins of like this part of this person's triggering me. But I feel like I've more come from a space of like, oh, like okay, like either yeah, put them to the side, avoid looking at it for a
Mhm.
while, or like face
Yeah.
it head on and be like, well, that's fucking inside of me. Or like I'm
Yeah.
like you said, that when you're not taking action on
Mhm.
your own desires and someone else is living out your literal dream,
Mhm.
that's where like that threat thing comes in because it's like they're actually doing what you're telling people that you're going to do. They're creating the evidence for
Oh my
themselves
God.
that you're like not even choosing to create for yourself.
Tell me about it. I had a situation in 2020, like it was like right before I started my business. I was posting, but I didn't have like a product to sell in the fitness industry. And there was this one girl that just like made her Instagram. She just made it, and she went to college with me. And she basically went through all of my followers and like started following all of them, and then all of them started following her, and she was like crushing it with her content and came out with a program. She just made her Instagram. I was so triggered because I was so scared to do what she was doing.
Yeah.
And I had all the excuses in the world. And now all of a sudden, she stole my followers. Like I was freaking out. It was so fucking funny. Honestly, now that I think about it, I was freaking out. I was so scared. I was in scarcity. I was in lack. I'm like, oh my God, they're all going to work with her. It's too late. She ruined everything for me, like victim mindset as fuck. And it's just so crazy because I literally started resenting her, not liking her. Like I just literally could not stand her. Every time she would like put something out, I would like judge her. And all of that was just coming from a place of she's doing what I have yet to do. And like, of course, it's like, I sometimes I'm like, okay, you really have to like steal all my followers. But it's also but it's also like, who fucking cares? Because when you understand that there's, there's people for her and there's people for me, like people are going to resonate with her, people are going to resonate with me. Like there's really no comparison. So like knowing that it's just that ego part is like, I want all of it
Yeah.
for me. But yeah, so I thought that was a funny fucking example of how this can play out.
Yeah. And like when you're trying to step into authority and like leadership as well in like a certain industry, place in, whatever it might be, this doesn't even have to be business related. But like, of course, it's going to feel like it's going to be perceived as a threat because it's like you're trying to be like the more like dominant one in that. Like I'm thinking back caveman days, right? There wasn't two fucking leaders of the tribe. So it's like, of course, your ego is like going to be like, fuck this, like all this stuff. But then like when we actually just look at it, like take a step back and like broaden our perspective, like followers actually don't mean anything. And I remember at the start of my business when I thought that they did, and I was like, no, like if I don't have like this many followers, then I'm not going to be an authority. Or I'm not going to be this. But for as long as I was fucking blaming that, I wasn't even showing up as an authority.
Mm-hmm.
Like as long as I was saying like, oh, until when I get like this many followers, then I'll be a leader. It's like that's a scapegoat because you're actually just choosing to stay small. Like get over yourself and just start fucking showing up.
It's
And
so
it's like
fucking
as soon as you like step into that truth as well, and like, for that girl that did that, it's like potentially it's not going to be a sustainable business for her because
Mhm.
she's coming from a place of scarcity in doing that as well. So I think that's also like when you come at things from a very inauthentic space, it's not going to pan out how you think it's going to pan out. Maybe for a little while, maybe you'll do those like 10K months for a little while and it'll feel really good. And then it's like, well, no, not
Yeah.
work. Because you actually need to, like, people want to come to you for you, not for, it's like weird. It's like people want your wisdom, but like they also can get it fucking on Google. So like they actually are just coming to you for the person that you are.
Yeah. No, yeah. And like
Yeah.
your energy and like everything you stand for. Otherwise, it's like they can literally just learn it from anyone. And I
Yeah.
think you realize that you become unstoppable because you're
Mm.
like, well, I'm the only one with this energy. Like, so there's a whole tribe out there that is depending on me to like share my magic with the world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like we've just had the most beautiful conversation. Like I'm in my luteal phase and I'm like due for my bleed in like 4 days. And when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I just don't know how I'm going to go in like conversation. I was a little bit like nervous because I didn't usually I'm like the cycle syncing queen. I'm like, yes, like yeah, I'm like, don't do podcasts at this time, don't do them at this time. But then like last week, because my energy levels were still like really high, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And like I can still bring the energy. I'm not like I don't ever use my cycle as an excuse. I just know that I'm not in my fullness. But I'm like,
Yeah.
this has just been like the most beautiful, like flowy feminine conversation. Like
Oh
I feel like
man,
my
I
heart
love it.
actually needed this.
Oh, I love that so much. That makes me so fucking happy. I'm so glad that we went after it. I was like, you're like, let's do it. I said, okay,
Yeah.
Tuesday, babe, let's do it. Like, and here we are. I'm so, so happy. This has been amazing. I love that I'm on this podcast and in your space and speaking to your audience and just being around you and like hearing your beautiful voice. I love your voice so much.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
so calming. I'm like,
You probably wouldn't say that after being with me for like a whole day. I swear I have ADHD. I literally talk for the sake of it all the time. My partner's like, Okay, look, I care about what you have to say, but can you just take a breath and actually ask yourself, do you need to talk right now?
Oh my
I
God.
literally am like always finding, I'm like,
I know. I'm the same way. I know my
yeah.
fiance is like, or my husband, shit. We just got married, so I have to get used to it. He's just like, honey. And then when he's not with me, I'm like texting him like, I just thought of this. Hey, look at this. Look at our cat. Look what she's doing now. Oh, look, she's sleeping here. Oh, she's getting some fresh air. Like literally picture after picture. Like
Literally me. And like, so I talk to my partner on WhatsApp because our like iPhones for some reason don't like sending each other like photos in our text messages. Not sure why. But on on WhatsApp, when you send like one, like if I send him like 5 photos, it dings 5 fucking times.
oh my God.
So I didn't know this for like months. And like I was sending him through like photos of this, like look at my lunch, like, oh my God, how's work going? Like just all this shit. And he's like, when you fucking text me, my phone sounds like it's ringing. Like, shut the fuck
That is so funny. Love that. Oh my God, wait, I love that you do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I just need you to know what the fuck's going on. And like at the moment, my friend's staying with us for a few weeks. And I was like, the other night, like literally trying to convince her, like, I have ADHD. And she's like, stop trying to convince me. Like, I actually don't need convincing. I was like,
Literally
okay.
awesome. I'm fully aware.
I was like, wait, it's not obvious.
Oh my God, I love that. You're so funny. I
Um,
adore you.
oh, I'm so glad we had this conversation. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up?
Always challenge your beliefs. Like just like
Mm.
challenge your beliefs because what you were conditioned with, what you were taught, what you were exposed to, a lot of that shit doesn't need to be your reality. And you're seeing evidence of that because that's what you're holding on to. That's what you're believing. That's the vision that you're holding internally and it's projecting out into your reality. And
Yeah,
when you start playing with energy, when you start realizing or understanding how energy works, a whole fucking new world opens up for you and you'll start to see how nothing is actually what it seems and there's just so much magic out there waiting for you to recognize it, waiting for you to play with it, waiting for you to embody it. And yeah,
I love
that's
that.
everything. It changed my world, and I wouldn't be sharing that with you if I didn't really truly believe it in my soul. It's like life is just so much more fun now. Life is so much more rich now. Life is just so beautiful now versus like how it used to be, where I just felt so confined to what my fucking parents taught me. Like that was a dull life because they weren't into expansion. They didn't know what was possible for them. So they just passed on to me their narrow vision of what was possible for them. Now I'm just like having the ultimate field day, never ending field day with what's possible and what I
Yeah.
can create in life. So I wanted to leave
As
you
you're
guys.
saying that, I'm just feel like I'm daydreaming. I'm like, so like people just, I know I said that's the last thing, but I just need to add like people just like think that because their parents like, have certain careers and bought a house in a certain area that that's as far as they can go, or that's what they define as success because that's what they think success is because it's what they've seen. But there's so much fucking more.
No,
Like,
so much more.
yeah, it's so
So
fucking much more.
more. Oh,
Can you share where people can find you and the name of your podcast so they can jump on over? I'll leave it linked below as well.
yeah. So my Instagram is Jada Chantelle. So that's at JaedaChantelle. And my podcast is called Vibe High.
Mm.
Um, link my Spotify.
Yeah.
Because I changed my cover recently and I'm trying to figure out how to get it to change on Apple Podcasts and it's still the old one and I fucking hate
Ah.
the one. I'm like, I don't want anyone to see it. But I emailed Apple, so they're gonna help me.
Oh, okay. Slay Apple. Thank you. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening. This has been so good, and I'll be back in your ears next week. Bye. Thank you so much for being a listener of the podcast. I love and appreciate you so, so much. And to show my appreciation and love for you, head on over to my Instagram at sacredspacew2nicolais. Jump in my DMs, let me know why you love the podcast, and I'll send you a little something special. See you next week.